You should be grateful that a parasite from the poor managed to marry into our wealthy family. You just need to keep working like a maid." After saying that, my mother-in-law looked down on me, while my father-in-law and husband laughed. Unable to endure such a life, I was waiting for a chance to get my revenge. Then, a certain person who visited my in-laws told me, "Long time no see." At those words, my husband and in-laws turned pale. Knowing my true identity, they were destined to despair. My name is Kristen. I work from home besides being a housewife. Previously, I was a regular office worker, but I quit when I got married. My husband, Ben, was my former boss, good-looking and competent. He was the object of admiration among the female employees, and I secretly took pride in dating him. Thus, I vividly remember being overjoyed when he proposed. Ben's father also managed a company, and Ben was what you would call a winner in life. Perhaps because of this, Ben was proud and somewhat domineering. But he was kind to me during our dating period, which completely won me over. Ben's domineering attitude emerged right after we decided to get married. It's only natural for a woman to take care of the home and support her husband. "Kristen, I want you to quit your job and wait at home for me to come back." Despite wanting to continue working, I respected his wishes and resigned. That's how I ended up doing my current work from home. I managed to balance housework and my job, but there's a problem. It's my relationship with my mother-in-law, Sandra. Since my in-laws' house is close to ours, Sandra frequently summons me. Even though I have work from home, deadlines can be very challenging. It's bothersome when Sandra hysterically yells, "You're a daughter-in-law, so come over immediately when called." Thus, I promptly comply with her summons. Sandra often calls me over without any particular reason and assigns me chores like cleaning and shopping, which she could do herself. Moreover, she makes snide remarks like, "Only Ben works, and here you are, comfortably not working at home." So meeting Sandra always fills me with dread. One day, after being summoned by her, I brought some sweets I had bought while out with a friend as a gift. I bought these during my recent outing. "I hope you like it." I offered the sweets to Sandra. She looked at them disdainfully and twisted her face in disgust. "What is this? Clearly cheap stuff. Don't poor people understand quality? Plus, you let Ben work while you go out, what a life. Such cheap stuff, neither I nor my husband can eat it. Use your brain a little, if you have any." Thinking she had said enough, Sandra then threw the sweets I had brought into the trash right in front of me. Although she had always criticized any gifts I brought, it was the first time she had thrown them away in front of me, and I was truly shocked. "Why would you do something like this? I bought them thinking you would enjoy them. Don't be so presumptuous. Who asked you to buy them? Bringing such poor people's food into our house, don't you find that rude? This is why I dislike poor people, they are not only dumb but also unpleasant." Visibly irritated, Sandra then snapped, "Anyway, just go and do the shopping. You're always so slow and clumsy, a good-for-nothing daughter-in-law." Shocked, I went shopping as she demanded, but from that day, I made excuses to avoid visiting my in-laws for a while. Then, Sandra came to our house unannounced. "Oh, I'm so hungry. Hurry up and prepare something," she demanded brazenly. Fortunately, I am quite confident in my cooking skills. I can whip up something quickly with whatever is in the fridge. I managed to prepare something quickly for Sandra, but she complained, "You're really slow." As expected, a useless daughter-in-law is also inefficient in cooking. As I forced a smile and offered her the food. "I'm sorry. Here you go." She continued to complain about how my house wasn't clean enough and how bad our furniture tasted, not touching the food at all. I wondered when she would eat because she had said she was hungry. But after finishing her complaints, she stood up to leave. Surprised, I asked, "Aren't you going to eat before you go?" Sandra sneered at my flustered reaction. Who would eat such poor food? Leftovers would be better. You're always at home yet can't even make decent food. Why on earth did Ben choose you as a wife? I was against this marriage from the start. You are far below our family's status, and a poor, unemployed wife is not needed. I couldn't hold back anymore when she mocked me with a laugh. I made this meal for you, and you didn't even taste a single bite. That's awful. Plus, I am at home, but I'm working from home. I've said this many times, but it's not only Ben who's working. She laughed loudly in response to my firm statement. Her laughter, mocking me, was extremely unpleasant. Working from home, you say it as if it's something grand. But you're just earning a little pocket money, aren't you? Stop pretending you work as much as Ben. Have some shame. Really, poor people are such pretenders. It's troublesome. Laughing scornfully, Sandra left our house. I felt tears welling up in my eyes as she departed. It's not just when we are alone that Sandra belittles me and takes me for granted. Even in front of Ben and my father-in-law, Howard, Sandra behaves the same way towards me. Seeing her behavior, neither Ben nor Howard defend me. After being ridiculed at my in-laws, I once complained to Ben. Why don't you help me when I'm being ridiculed and told horrible things? It really hurts me. It's terrible that you don't help. I had thought maybe Ben couldn't side with me in front of his mother. However, he nonchalantly said, "It can't be helped. It's your fault for being born into a poor family. It's natural for the rich to look down on the poor." I was stunned by his words, but since he seemed to truly believe what he was saying, I couldn't argue back. After that, I stopped discussing my mother-in-law with Ben. One day, during the harassment from Sandra, I received a summons from her as usual. That day, since Ben was off work, we went to my in-laws' house together. I felt heavy-hearted about going there, but that day was different. Welcome, both of you. Today is a celebration, so I've prepared a feast. According to the cheerful mother-in-law, my father-in-law's company had secured a large contract. It seemed that the contract would bring significant profits, and that day was a celebration of securing it. Sitting in front of the feast, I thought I might be finally able to enjoy a pleasant time at my in-laws. But my good-mood mother-in-law was also in full swing with her insults. Kristen is really lucky, you know. Marrying into a wealthy family like ours. Like a parasite, yet getting to eat such a feast, you're truly a lucky woman, Kristen. Be thankful you could marry Ben. My father-in-law laughed joyfully at her words, agreeing. That's right. Kristen went from being poor to joining a rich family all at once. Ben, listening to his parents' words, smiled and said, "She must be grateful to me every day, right?" Kristen? I felt so uncomfortable and goosebumps formed on my skin. Of course, all the cleaning up after the feast was left to me. Ben and my in-laws were chatting in the living room as if they couldn't even see me. Feeling like a maid and unable to hold back my pent-up frustration, I blurted out, "I'm not a maid. I can't endure this treatment anymore." My in-laws were dumbfounded, and Ben sighed. "Look, Kristen. Dad has been running a company, right? Mom has supported him for many years. Kristen, you should be grateful to your noble parents. It's only natural for you to work like a maid." Stunned by his words, I silently finished the cleanup that day. But on that day, I made a decision, called a certain person, and waited for a chance for revenge. Time passed, and one day, I was summoned by Sandra as usual, and visited my in-laws' house with Ben. We were called because a representative of a major project was coming to my in-laws' house. And we were summoned to help with the hospitality. I was made to clean the house from corner to corner and cook the meals, being worked like a horse. Despite this, Sandra only scolded me and did not help at all. What a slowpoke. I don't know if we'll be ready before the guest arrives. You're a parasite, try to be of some use to our house. Just as I finished cleaning and cooking, the doorbell rang. My father-in-law rushed to the entrance and welcomed the representative of the business partner. Since the representative saw me with my apron still on, and my mother-in-law smiled and introduced me with a grin. This is the maid. Please don't mind her. Please take a seat. However, the representative didn't move. Looking at me, he smiled kindly and said, "Long time no see." Ignoring the flustered father-in-law, I also smiled and greeted. "Long time no see, Dad." "Dad?" Sandra's voice turned in shock. Yes. The representative of my father-in-law's important business contact was my real father, Robert. It was no wonder that Ben and my in-laws were stunned. They had never met my father. Due to his busy schedule, always traveling abroad, I hadn't had a chance to meet him before or after getting married. While Ben had greeted him over the phone when we got married, this was the first time they met in person. Of course, I had shown a photo of my father to Ben when we became a family. But it was a long time ago, and there was a gap between that photo and the current father. So they hadn't realized that the representative was my father. Ben and my in-laws couldn't accept the reality and were stunned for a while. But Ben was the first to realize a certain fact. If Robert is Kristen's father, that means Kristen is an incredibly wealthy lady. I had never flaunted it, so I had kept it hidden, but in fact, I am the daughter of a father who manages a company with a net worth of $50 million. In other words, I was a corporate heiress. My in-laws started trembling, and my father said with a fixed smile, "I came to check on my daughter while discussing business, but why is she being treated like a maid?" At my father's question, Ben and my in-laws began to panic. Ben grabbed my shoulders and demanded, "Why have you been silent about this?" Because if it were known that my family is wealthy, people might flock to us aiming for our assets, right? I hated that, and I also disliked acting superior like some people, flaunting wealth. Ben turned red with anger at my sarcastic remark. My father had taught me to use my mother's surname to protect me, instructing me from childhood to strictly adhere to this. Thus, until now, my wealth had not been revealed to Ben and my in-laws. However, Ben was not convinced and pressed on. "I've been to your family home before, but it didn't feel wealthy at all. There's no proof that Robert is Kristen's father." I sighed and revealed the truth. "The home you've been to with me is our second house. We have a main house where my mother usually lives." Huh? Why would you introduce a second house as your family home? It was also a measure to hide that I'm a wealthy heiress. "This is the real family home." Saying that, I showed them a photo of my real home on my smartphone, and Sandra shrieked. "This house, it's a famous mansion in the area. My real family home, located in a prime urban area, is a famously extravagant mansion well known among the wealthy circles." In front of the stunned Ben and in-laws, my father cleared his throat. "I had heard that Kristen was being treated terribly, and today I've seen it with my own eyes. We cannot do business with people who refer to my daughter as a maid. As for the project we were discussing, please consider it cancelled." My in-laws panicked at his statement. "Please don't say such things. Calling her a maid was just a joke. Kristen has always been good to us. And my wife talks every day about how lucky we are to have such a wonderful daughter-in-law. Right, Sandra?" "Yes. That's right. Kristen is so skilled at cooking, and she even works from home. She truly is splendid. As my in-laws groveled, my father exaggeratedly tilted his head. Strange. The story I've heard is that our Kristen has been mocked for her cooking, which goes uneaten. And her work from home is ridiculed, making her feel miserable. With everything already explained to my father, nothing my in-laws said now could make any difference. Sandra finally broke down crying and collapsed right there. My husband's company will be finished if we don't get this deal. We've already bought expensive things in anticipation of the profit from this deal and even planned a trip. Please, don't say you'll void it now. I was shocked to learn for the first time that Howard's company was apparently just barely managing to stay afloat. Disgusted by their previous arrogance, my father said calmly, "Kristen, bring it out." What I had hidden away. I started the recording app on my smartphone. The smartphone played the voices of Sandra berating me, with Ben and Howard laughing along. As they listened to the recording, their faces, already pale, turned even grayer. Without mercy, I thrust the divorce papers at Ben. "I've kept records of all the abuse. I can't endure this treatment any longer. I'll be filing for divorce. Of course, I will be seeking alimony." Ben initially refused, but under pressure from my father, who said, "Sign it quickly," he trembled as he signed the divorce papers. After that, I took off my apron, left my in-laws' house with my father, and moved out promptly. I thought that was the end of my relationship with Ben and my in-laws, but they turned out to be more persistent than I expected. One day, as I was enjoying peaceful days back at my home, the doorbell rang. When I checked the monitor, Howard and Sandra had come to my house. I thought about ignoring them. But they looked so disheveled and had lost so much weight since I last saw them that I decided to see what was going on. At the door, I asked, "What do you want?" Howard began to speak. After that, our company went bankrupt, and we ended up deep in debt. Now we live a life chased by debt collectors. It's all your fault. That's right. After what you did. We'll never forgive you. As they blamed me, I asked without hiding my displeasure. Ben is working properly, right? He has income, so why don't you rely on that? At my dismissive words, Sandra screamed as if she'd gone mad. Ben tried to save us and ended up embezzling company funds. Now he's been arrested and is just as drowned in debt as we are. It's your fault for ambushing us, which led him to commit a crime. That's right. Take responsibility and let us live in that second house of yours. Hearing Howard shout such outrageous demands, I laughed scornfully. That house, though I call it our second home, is actually where our family pets live. Since we're strangers now, I have no obligation to help you. I see no reason to assist those who treated me like a maid and showered me with insults and scorn. If you had been kind to me, I might have considered helping. Isn't this just desserts? At my cold words, Howard and Sandra showed a look of despair. I became fed up and dismissively said to them, "Your company has gone bankrupt. Shed your shame and find a part-time job or something and try to survive. Goodbye." As they screamed for me to wait, I closed the front door, locked it, and even put on the chain. They continued shouting in front of the house, which was quite noisy, but I ignored them. However, perhaps that wasn't the best decision. It seems the neighbors were disturbed as someone must have called the police, and a patrol car arrived at my home. From the second-floor balcony, I secretly watched as Howard and Sandra were taken away in the patrol car. Since then, I haven't seen Howard and Sandra. I don't even know if they're alive, but knowing their brazen nature, they're probably scraping by somewhere. As for me, I've used the knowledge I gained from my work-from-home experience to start a company. Now, as a female CEO, I'm living busy days. Although I could have relied on my wealthy family background, I chose to be independent and carve out my own path. Managing a new company is challenging but fulfilling. I'm glad I cut ties with such a husband and in-laws and took a new step forward. From now on, I plan to grow my company and make it as successful as my father's.